There comes a time in life when you realize that no one is coming to save you. No one is going to give you permission to change your life. If you want to grow, evolve and win, you have to do it yourself. That's the heart of this book. It strips away excuses, distractions, and the false promises of shortcuts. It tells you the truth. Your life will change the moment you decide to stop looking outward and start focusing inward. You are the only person responsible for your success, your happiness and your progress. Everything around you, the people you hang out with, the choices you make, the habits you repeat is either helping you or hurting you. But it all begins with your mindset. That's where most people lose. They want results, but they don't want reflection. They chase outcomes without mastering their input. This book doesn't just say, focus on yourself like a slogan. It explains what that actually means, what it demands, and what it changes. To truly focus on yourself, you have to become brutally honest. You have to admit where you've been playing small, where you've been distracted, and where you've allowed comfort to overtake progress. Most people don't lose because they lack talent or resources. They lose because they lack focus. They're too busy watching others, comparing themselves, and reacting to things that have nothing to do with their growth. You reclaim your power the moment you stop trying to manage everything around you and start managing everything within you. This journey isn't easy. In fact, it's often lonely. That's something the book makes very clear. You can't expect to evolve while staying attached to people, places, and patterns that kept you stagnant. Growth is uncomfortable. It forces you to say no when it's easier to say yes. It demands sacrifices of time, of attention, of relationships. Sometimes that means distancing yourself from people who aren't ready to grow. Not because you're better than them, but because you're finally choosing to be better than who you used to be. Once you start focusing on yourself, you begin to realize how much time you've wasted, not just on distractions, but on the wrong goals, the wrong influences, and the wrong narratives about who you are and what you're capable of. You begin to question, whose dream was I chasing? Was it even mine? Am I living by design or by default? This book invites you to redefine success. Not by what the world says, but by what you deeply want for yourself. Maybe that's peace. Maybe it's purpose. Maybe it's excellence. But it has to be personal. If your dream isn't real to you, you won't fight for it. Focus brings clarity, and with clarity comes discomfort, because now you have to confront the gap between where you are and where you want to be. The book doesn't shy away from this. It challenges you to build discipline, not the kind that relies on motivation, but the kind that works in silence, the kind that shows up even when it's tired, uncertain, or uninspired. Real winners don't depend on inspiration. They depend on routines, systems, structure. They don't need to be in the mood. They need to stay in motion. Consistency is the foundation of transformation. Most people want to change their lives, but they don't want to change their habits. They're looking for the result, not the process. But this book reminds you, you are what you do consistently, not occasionally. And success isn't complicated. It's often just boring. It's the same daily actions, done well, done with intention, and done without apology. While others are chasing excitement, you're chasing progress. Quietly, relentlessly. That's another truth many ignore. Focus isn't loud. It's not about posting your grind. It's not about proving anything to anyone. It's internal. It's private. It's between you and the person in the mirror. When you're truly locked in, you don't need attention. You need alignment. You don't need validation. You need direction. The more you focus on yourself, the less you need others to understand your path. But that doesn't mean you don't need people at all. The book makes it clear, you need the right people. The ones who challenge your comfort zones, who respect your boundaries, who match your energy, and who encourage your growth. But to attract those people, you have to become that kind of person. You have to be intentional with your circle. You don't rise in toxic environments. You rise in truth-based, value-driven environments. And often, the first step is learning to be okay alone, until you meet people who deserve access to your energy. There's also a deep lesson about emotional control, about not letting temporary emotions ruin long-term goals. Just because you feel tired, frustrated or discouraged doesn't mean you stop. Emotional discipline means doing the work anyway, not faking positivity, but not quitting either. It means understanding that your feelings are valid, but they're not always accurate. And when you learn to act based on principle, not just emotion, you become dangerous in the best way. The book encourages you to track your time like it matters, because it does. Time is the one resource you can't get back. What you do daily becomes your lifestyle. What you tolerate today becomes your standard tomorrow. You either use your time to build, or you use it to escape. But nothing escapes the reality that your future depends on the choices you make right now. You don't need a perfect plan. You need purposeful action. Even if it's small. Especially if it's small. Because small steps, taken daily, lead to big change. This is where many people get it wrong. They wait for motivation. They wait for clarity. They wait for someone to believe in them. But focus doesn't wait. Focus decides. It says, I don't need to know every step, I just need to take the next one. It says, I don't need support, I need standards. Because the truth is, most people won't understand your vision until it's visible. But if you wait for them to catch up, you'll stay stuck. Your job is not to convince them, it's to become the version of yourself that no longer needs convincing. One of the most important takeaways from the book is that focusing on yourself doesn't mean becoming selfish. It means becoming self-aware. You begin to take responsibility for your peace. You stop blaming others for your patterns. You stop making excuses for your habits. You stop hoping someone else will come do the work for you. You finally realize this is your life. No one's going to give you your breakthrough. You have to create it. And once you commit to that path, your entire energy changes. You start to trust yourself. You start to follow through. You stop negotiating with excuses. You start setting boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect what you're building. You stop needing to explain your every move. You stop doubting your own ability. You start showing up with quiet confidence. Not because you're perfect, but because you're prepared. Then, something powerful happens. The gap between who you are and who you want to be begins to shrink. You no longer feel like you're pretending. You're becoming, you're evolving, you're rising, you're winning. Not in the way the world defines it, but in the way that feels real to you. And it all began when you decided to stop looking around and start looking within. By the end of this book, one thing is clear. Focusing on yourself is not a phase, it's a lifestyle, it's a long-term investment. And it's not just about achievement, it's about alignment. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't just chase success, but sustains it. Not because of what they do once, but because of who they become consistently. So if you're listening to this right now, take this as your reminder. You don't need to wait for a sign, you are the sign. Your future starts when your focus sharpens. Your growth begins when your excuses end. Your power is built when your discipline kicks in. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need applause. You don't even need a perfect plan. All you need to do is focus on you until you win. There comes a time in life when you realize that no one is coming to fix your life for you. No one is going to rescue you from your struggles, motivate you into discipline, or hold your hand until you reach your full potential. That realization isn't supposed to scare you. It's supposed to liberate you. Because the moment you take complete ownership of your life, everything begins to change. For most people, the greatest obstacle isn't the world around them, it's the world within them. We're taught, often from a young age, to look outside ourselves for validation, for answers, for someone to blame. When things go wrong, it's tempting to point the finger at our past, our parents, our circumstances, or society. But blaming the external world doesn't solve your internal problems. In fact, it keeps you stuck in cycles of frustration, powerlessness, and procrastination. You can't win the game if you keep giving away your power to things outside your control. This book delivers a simple but profound truth. You are the project. Your mind, your heart, your habits, your actions, those are the only things you can truly change. The sooner you stop blaming and start building, the sooner you take control of your future. That doesn't mean ignoring the things you've been through. It means refusing to let them define you. Your life doesn't change when you move cities. It doesn't change when you buy new clothes, or get new followers, or find a relationship. It changes when you decide to confront yourself honestly. When you look in the mirror and say, "This is on me, my happiness, my focus, my growth. It all starts and ends with me." That moment of radical accountability is the starting point of transformation. This isn't always easy. In fact, it's uncomfortable, because it means facing the truth about where you've been playing small. It means admitting that you've been distracted, that you've made excuses, that you've let yourself coast when you should have pushed. But discomfort is the birthplace of change. You don't grow by avoiding the truth, you grow by embracing it. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean being selfish, it means being responsible. It means understanding that you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot lead, inspire, build, or create anything meaningful if you are not grounded in who you are. So you stop waiting for the perfect time. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop waiting for someone to push you. You become your own source of momentum. And here's the thing. No one is going to give you permission to evolve. No one is going to knock on your door and say, "Now is the right time to get serious." That permission has to come from you. If you keep waiting for the world to change, so your life gets easier, you're going to be waiting forever. The only guaranteed way to win is to take control of your own development. When you focus on yourself, you begin to realize just how much time and energy you've wasted on things that don't matter. You recognize how often you've been distracted by drama, by comparison, by trying to fix others while ignoring yourself. It's a hard truth, but an empowering one, because once you see it, you can stop it. You can reclaim your time, your energy, your focus, and use it to build something real. The book explains that transformation starts with accountability. You stop looking at what others are doing. You stop trying to change people who don't want to grow. You stop scrolling through other people's highlight reels and comparing your behind the scenes. Instead, you turn all that attention inward. You ask the tough questions. Am I disciplined? Am I consistent? Am I becoming who I said I wanted to be? If not, what am I waiting for? The biggest breakthroughs don't happen when someone gives you advice. They happen when you finally listen to yourself, when you stop lying to yourself, when you stop making excuses and start making commitments. That's when things shift, because focus is powerful. Focus creates clarity, and clarity fuels direction. When you start focusing on yourself, people may not understand. They might call you distant, selfish, or too serious. But the book reminds you, not everyone deserves access to your time or energy. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you're protecting your peace, setting new standards, or raising your bar. You're not here to please everyone. You're here to grow, and growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. You become who you focus on being. If you focus on chaos, you become anxious. If you focus on others, you become lost. But if you focus on you, your habits, your mindset, your purpose, you begin to rise. Another critical idea the book shares is that focusing on yourself means becoming intentional with your time. Every hour counts. Every choice compounds. You can't say you want to win, then spend your days doing things that sabotage your growth. You can't say you want peace, then surround yourself with chaos. You can't say you want progress, then repeat the same lazy habits. Real change is boring. It's not glamorous. It's not some big loud announcement. It's the quiet decision to show up daily, to train, to reflect, to read, to execute. That's what it means to take yourself seriously. You treat your time like it matters. You treat your goals like they're real. And you stop playing small just to make others comfortable. The book is also clear about this. The enemy isn't outside you. It's the voice in your head telling you to wait. The distractions that pull you off track. The fear of judgment. The craving for comfort. All of that is within your control. Once you choose to take control, and here's something powerful. You don't need to be perfect to start. You just need to be committed. You'll make mistakes. You'll have setbacks. But every time you fall, you get back up stronger. Because now you know it's on you. You're not waiting for life to hand you success. You're earning it through action. This mindset isn't just about achievement. It's about identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who honors their word, who respects their time, who keeps promises to themselves. That's what self-trust looks like. And that's how confidence is built. Not by talking, but by doing. And when you begin to focus on yourself, you'll notice that your energy changes. You're no longer triggered by things that used to bother you. You're not chasing approval. You're not competing with anyone. You're simply becoming your best self, one step at a time. That level of focus creates peace. And from that peace, you build power. It's important to understand that this journey is not always going to be supported by everyone around you. Some people won't like your growth because it reminds them of their stagnation, but that's okay. The goal isn't to be liked. The goal is to be aligned with your values, your goals, your potential, and that alignment only comes when you stay true to you. The more you focus on yourself, the more you realize how much of your past progress was held back by distractions. You see that you were capable all along. You just weren't committed. And once that commitment locks in, your momentum becomes unstoppable. This book is a call to action. It's not about motivational fluff. It's not about hype. It's about discipline, about showing up on the days you don't feel like it, about setting standards and sticking to them, about treating your personal growth like the most important project of your life, because it is. Your life is not a rehearsal. This is it. And you don't get to repeat the same year over and over and call that living. You have to push. You have to evolve. You have to stop letting fear of failure keep you from trying. The only real failure is refusing to grow. So what happens when you focus on yourself? You build clarity. You build confidence. You build consistency. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop settling and start creating. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. That's when you win. Not when the world changes, but when you do. Not when everything is perfect, but when you become focused. Not when people start supporting you, but when you start supporting yourself. Because at the end of the day, your life will be a reflection of what you chose to focus on. And if you focus on you fully, honestly, consistently, you will win. You are the project, and you are worth building. In today's world, attention is the new currency. Whoever controls your attention controls your energy, your mood, and ultimately your results. And the uncomfortable truth is this: most people have handed over their attention to distractions without even realizing it. They wake up, reach for their phone, scroll through social media, absorb everyone else's lives, opinions, and problems before they've even said good morning to themselves. That's not living, that's reacting, that's being controlled. The first real step to self-mastery is cutting the noise of endless scrolling, negative conversations, toxic people, comparison, and mindless entertainment. The noise that keeps you too distracted to focus on your purpose. The noise that steals your clarity and clutters your mind with garbage. It's not that people don't want to grow, it's that they're too distracted to even remember they wanted to. The book teaches that if you want to win, you don't need more motivation. You don't need more strategies. What you need is space. You need silence. You need to shut off the world and get real about your daily habits. Because your success is not determined by what you occasionally do when you're inspired. It's determined by what you do consistently, especially when you're not inspired at all. Most people are addicted to distraction. They say they want success but check their phone every 5 minutes. They say they want focus, but they constantly allow themselves to be pulled into conversations, drama, and updates that have nothing to do with their goals. If you're always checking what other people are doing, how can you build what you are supposed to be doing? It's not about cutting everything out of your life forever. It's about taking back your control. Social media isn't the enemy. Your lack of discipline is. Toxic people aren't the problem. Your inability to set boundaries is. Netflix isn't destroying your life. Your habit of choosing comfort over commitment is. You see, the real problem isn't the distraction itself. It's the fact that you've been so mentally available to it. If you want to change your life, you have to change your pattern. And that starts with guarding your focus, like it's sacred, because it is. Your focus determines your future. Every time you waste a day in distraction, that's a day you didn't invest in your goals. That's a day you didn't get stronger, wiser, or closer to who you say you want to be. We've been trained to seek stimulation instead of growth. That's why we struggle with consistency. Success is boring. It's routine. It's repetition. It's waking up, doing the work, doing it again, and doing it again, without applause, without praise, without instant results. It's not sexy. It's not loud, but it works. The people who win are not the most talented or the most inspired. They are the most disciplined. They've trained themselves to fall in love with the process. They don't need every day to be exciting. They just need it to be productive. That's where habits come in. When you eliminate distractions, you create space to build real, powerful, transformative habits. Habits like reading, feeding your mind with ideas and truth that challenge and stretch you. Habits like exercising, training your body to match the strength of your mind. Habits like journaling, meditating, planning your day, reviewing your goals. Habits like being intentional with your time, saying no when it doesn't serve your mission, and cutting off anything that weakens your self-respect. Habits are not just action. They are votes for the kind of person you're becoming. Every time you show up to the gym, you're becoming the kind of person who honors their health. Every time you read instead of scrolling, you're becoming the kind of person who invests in their growth. Every time you execute a task, even when you don't feel like it, you're building the mindset of a finisher, not just a starter. And it's not just about building habits, it's about protecting them. That means designing your life in a way that makes the good habits easy and the bad habits hard. Set up your environment for success. Don't rely on willpower, it runs out. Rely on systems. For example, if you want to read more, keep books in every room. If you want to stop scrolling in the morning, charge your phone outside the bedroom. If you want to stay consistent in your work, set scheduled blocks of time where nothing else gets in. The more you simplify your life, the more successful you become. Complexity kills clarity. If you've got too many goals, too many distractions, too many obligations, your energy gets scattered, and scattered energy produces scattered results. But when you cut the noise, your focus sharpens. You can think clearer, act faster, execute better, and with that kind of momentum, progress becomes inevitable. You'll also notice something powerful happen when you commit to discipline. The complaints fade. You stop complaining because you're too busy working. You stop comparing because you're too focused on growing. You stop needing external validation because you're building internal confidence. And that confidence doesn't come from fake affirmations. It comes from action. It comes from doing what you said you would do over and over again until you trust yourself. And here's another truth. You don't rise by always doing what's comfortable. You rise by doing what's required. Some days you won't feel like it. Some days your emotions will try to convince you to take the easy route, but discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. It's showing up even when it's inconvenient. It's saying no to short-term pleasure so you can say yes to long-term success. The problem is, most people have trained themselves to seek comfort at every turn. They say things like, "I'm not in the mood, I'll do it later," or "I'll start next week." But that's just procrastination disguised as self-care. Real self-care is doing what's necessary to grow, even when you don't feel like it. Real self-respect is not letting your mood dictate your mission. Once you make your habits non-negotiable, life gets clearer. You know what your day needs to look like. You stop wasting mental energy deciding whether or not you're going to do the work. You just do. And that's where freedom comes from. Not from doing whatever you want, but from becoming the kind of person who can trust themselves to follow through. Eventually you start to feel the shift. You're no longer distracted. You're directed. You're no longer confused. You're no longer overwhelmed. You're in control. And all of that came from cutting the noise and doing the daily work one habit at a time. This approach is not just about building success. It's about building peace. You can't feel peace when your life is chaotic. You can't feel focused when your mind is cluttered. You can't grow when you're constantly distracted. You can't grow when you're constantly distracted by things that drain you. But when you start living intentionally, when you eliminate the unnecessary, when you commit to the habits that fuel your purpose, that's when life opens up. So ask yourself, what's stealing your focus right now? What's taking your energy, but giving you nothing in return? What habits are building you, and what habits are breaking you? Be honest, because honesty is the first step toward clarity. And once you know what needs to go, be ruthless. Protect your time. Defend your focus. You are not obligated to remain available to things that keep you from growing. Your future is too important to waste on distractions. You don't need new goals. You need new standards. You need to raise the bar on how you manage your time, how you guard your energy, and how you show up every single day. And here's the truth. You already know what you need to do. You've known it for a while, but knowing isn't enough. Execution is everything. Stop chasing new information and start applying what you already know. That's how transformation happens. Not with more input, but with consistent output. The most successful people in the world don't have magical secret. They just do the boring things better than everyone else. And they do them every day. That's how you separate yourself. That's how you move ahead. Not by getting louder, but by getting better. So, eliminate the distractions. Master your routines. Build habits that reflect your vision. Because the more focused you are on becoming your best self, the less time you'll have for anything that doesn't support that mission. And in that space, after the noise is gone and the habits are locked in, you'll find momentum. You'll find confidence. You'll find power. Not because the world gave it to you, but because you built it. Daily. Silently. Relentlessly. Growth sounds beautiful until you realize what it actually costs. Most people talk about becoming their best self like it's a dream vacation. Something exciting, fulfilling, maybe even easy. But the reality is this. Growth requires sacrifice. Deep, uncomfortable, soul-stretching sacrifice. If you truly want to rise in life, if you want to evolve into someone stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your purpose, then you must be prepared to leave some things behind. And not just the obvious distractions like bad habits or wasted time. You will also have to let go of parts of yourself. Old versions of you that you've outgrown. People you've outgrown. Environments that once felt safe, but are now suffocating. Growth demands that you loosen your grip on comfort so that your hands are free to build your future. You can't stay the same and expect your life to change. That's the lie most people live in. They want new results without a new mindset. They want transformation without transition. But change is a process of letting go, before it's a process of becoming. And here's the hardest part. Sometimes growth looks like loneliness. When you start to take yourself seriously, when you start to focus, when you begin choosing discipline over distraction, not everyone will understand. In fact, many won't. You'll start to see the divide between who you are becoming and who they still are. And it can hurt. You'll notice conversations that once excited you now bore you. Environments that once felt lively now drain you. People you used to laugh with no longer align with your values. This isn't because you think you're better. It's because you've started choosing better. And that choice creates distance. But that distance is necessary. That space gives you room to breathe, to think, to create, to reset. It's not punishment, it's preparation. You're shedding old layers, old limitations, old patterns that can't come with you where you're going. If it's meant for the next version of you, it will grow with you. If not, it will fall away, and you must let it. Too often people sabotage their future by holding on to their past. They know certain relationships no longer serve them, but they stay out of guilt. They know their environment is toxic, but they stay out of fear. They know their habits are destructive, but they hold on because they're familiar. Growth says, let it go. You can't build a new life while dragging the dead weight of your old one. The truth is, the price of elevation is separation. You cannot keep everything and rise. You have to choose comfort or growth, safety or success, familiarity or fulfillment. The world will try to convince you that you can have both, but the process will always require loss. That loss can feel like grief, and in many ways it is. You are grieving an identity that used to define you. You are grieving the roles you played, the places you belonged, the patterns that felt like home. But don't mistake that grief as a sign you're on the wrong path. It's proof that you're evolving. Every version of your best self lives beyond a door labeled sacrifice. It might look like spending weekends alone instead of going out. It might mean deleting numbers, leaving group chats, walking away from circles that no longer challenge you. It might mean waking up earlier than everyone else, saying no to distractions, setting boundaries that disappoint people who benefited from your lack of them. That's not selfish, it's strategic. The book makes this truth clear. Not everyone will come with you. And that's okay. Growth is personal, it's intimate. It's not a group activity. You will have moments when you feel isolated, misunderstood, even rejected. But solitude isn't the enemy. It's the forge. It's where you discover your resilience, sharpen your clarity, and develop self-trust. Walking alone for a while teaches you what you actually stand for. If you never spend time alone, you never meet your real self. And that self, that stronger, wiser, more focused version of you, is waiting on the other side of sacrifice. But the path there isn't paved with convenience. It's paved with intentional choices that prioritize your future over your comfort. Over and over again. And you'll be tested. Life will test your discipline, your patience, your ability to let go when it's easier to hold on. You'll be tempted to go back to what's familiar. Old habits will call you. Old people will try to guilt you. Old environments will offer nostalgia. But none of that aligns with where you're headed. You have to ask yourself, do I want to grow? Or do I want to stay comfortable? Because you cannot have both. Comfort is the silent killer of dreams. It keeps you in the same cycles, surrounded by the same people repeating the same excuses. But growth breaks cycles. It demands new standards. It stretches you to think differently, act differently, be different. And being different can be lonely. But it's also liberating. When you accept that growth comes with loss, you stop clinging. You stop chasing people who don't support your journey. You stop watering dead plants. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. And in that quiet, in that space where it's just you and your vision, you begin to build. You begin to rise. You'll start to notice your peace increasing, your clarity sharpening, your purpose solidifying. Because once you remove everything that's weighing you down, your natural state is power. The confusion fades, the drama disappears, and what remains is focus, intention, and momentum. There's a moment in every transformation where you have to decide, is this life I've been living enough? Or am I ready to trade what's familiar for what's possible? That decision won't be easy, but it will be worth it. Because what's on the other side of that decision is everything you've ever wanted: freedom, alignment, fulfillment, and peace. But it doesn't come through adding more. It comes through removing what no longer fits. That's why it's called sacrifice. You are giving something up in exchange for something greater. And it's important to note, not all sacrifice is external. Sometimes the biggest thing you have to give up is your own limiting beliefs. The voice in your head that says you're not ready, not good enough, not capable. Growth means sacrificing the story you've told yourself for years. The one where you always play small, where you avoid risk, where you wait for permission. That story ends here. If you want to win, you need to write a new story. One where you are the main character, not the sidekick in someone else's drama. One where you choose courage over convenience. One where you prioritize alignment over approval. When you stop living for everyone else and start living for your higher self, you start to see everything differently. You stop settling for good enough. You stop entertaining what drains you. You stop chasing quick fixes and start building long-term stability. And that's the real win. Not just success, but inner peace. Because the goal isn't just to grow, it's to outgrow. Outgrow the negativity, outgrow the self-doubt, outgrow the chaos, outgrow the life that doesn't serve the person you're becoming. And yes, it will be hard, but you've done hard things before. You've survived what you once thought would break you. And now you're choosing to do something even harder. Walk away from what's easy in order to walk toward what's right. That's real strength. That's real self-respect. And that's what this journey is all about. You don't need more validation. You don't need more followers. You don't need more comfort. What you need is clarity. And clarity comes from separation. It comes when you remove what no longer fits, so that what belongs can finally find you. So don't be afraid to lose what's behind you. The past served its purpose. The people taught you lessons. The pain grew you. The habits got you here. But they won't get you there. That's why letting go is not failure. It's faith. Faith in who you're becoming. Faith in where you're headed. And remember, everything you let go of is making space for something better. This is your time. This is your elevation. And yes, it starts with sacrifice. But that sacrifice will give birth to your highest self. The greatest shift in your life will happen the moment you stop living by how you feel and start living by what you're committed to. That's the turning point. That's when your results begin to reflect your goals rather than your emotions. Because feelings are fleeting, but commitment is a choice you make every single day, whether you feel like it or not. People often think success is about hype, excitement, and bursts of energy. But in truth, success is much quieter. It's not glamorous. It doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it's waking up tired, uninspired, and frustrated, but still showing up. It's doing the work, not because you feel like it, but because you said you would. Emotional control is one of the greatest skills you can ever build, because life will constantly give you reasons to quit, slow down, or change direction. There will be days when you don't feel like getting out of bed, when everything in you says, take it easy. And if you build your life around emotions, those days will control you. But if you build your life around discipline, you take the power back. Discipline is not about perfection, it's about consistency. It's about doing what needs to be done, especially when it's not convenient. Especially when no one is watching. Especially when your mind gives you every excuse to stop. And make no mistake, your emotions will try to run your life. They'll say, I'm tired, I'm bored, this is too hard, what's the point? If you listen to those voices, you'll live in cycles. You'll start strong, get excited, and then fall off the moment it gets uncomfortable. That's what most people do. They move when they're motivated, but motivation doesn't last. It's like a spark. Discipline is what keeps the fire burning. The book teaches that focus is not a mood, it's a decision. A daily decision to show up with intention, no matter how you feel. It's choosing structure over chaos, direction over distraction, commitment over comfort. The reason so many people struggle to stay consistent isn't because they lack ability. It's because they let their emotions make their decisions. They act according to their energy, not their values. But the truth is, your emotions are not always reliable. They're shaped by things outside your control, weather, hormones, conversations, memories, or even what you ate. So if you build your life based on something so unstable, your results will always be unstable. The alternative is to act from your principles. That means showing up for the gym, for your goals, for your dreams, whether or not it's fun. It means keeping promises to yourself, even on the hard days. That's how real confidence is built, not through hype, but through follow-through. The kind of follow-through that says, even on my worst day, I'm still someone who shows up. You become dangerous in the best way, when your mood no longer dictates your behavior. Imagine how unstoppable you would be if your habits didn't depend on how you felt. Imagine what you could accomplish if you trained yourself to act regardless of your mental state. That kind of consistency changes everything. Because over time, your discipline rewires your identity. It stops being something you have to do and becomes something you are. You go from, I should work out, to I am someone who trains. From, I should work on my goals, to I am someone who executes. Your habits define your identity, and your identity reinforces your habits. That's the cycle you want to live in. But it starts with mastering your impulses, and that doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. It means not letting them drive. Feelings can ride in the car, but discipline holds the wheel. Emotions are like weather. They shift, they pass. And just like you wouldn't cancel your whole life because it's raining outside, you don't cancel your goals because your feelings are having a rough day. You carry on, you adjust, you move with purpose. This mindset shift requires honesty. You have to stop lying to yourself about what you can and can't do. You're not too tired, you just haven't trained your mind to push through. You're not unmotivated, you just haven't built the muscle of follow-through. Discipline is a muscle, and just like any other muscle, it grows when you use it, especially when it hurts. The problem is that most people think discipline means grinding 20, but the difference is this: when disciplined people rest, they choose it, they don't escape into it. There's a big difference between conscious rest and emotional avoidance. Emotional avoidance says I don't feel like doing it, so I'm going to distract myself. Discipline says I'll rest after I've earned it. I'll take breaks with intention, not guilt. That's what separates the people who make progress from the ones who keep restarting. The ones who win are not superhuman. They've just made a decision that no matter what happens externally, they'll keep showing up. A decision that their goals are not negotiable. You can start building that power today. And it starts small. When your mind says hit snooze, get up anyway. When it says skip the workout, show up anyway. When it says this doesn't matter, remind yourself that every action is a vote for your future self. Every time you choose discipline, even in small ways, you're proving to yourself that you can be trusted, and that trust turns into self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of everything. Your relationships, your career, your health, your peace. But if you keep breaking promises to yourself, you train your mind to stop believing in you. That's why it hurts so much to be inconsistent. It's not just the lost time, it's the way it erodes your confidence. Discipline rebuilds that. It says, I'm not perfect, but I'm present, I'm committed, I'm all in. You can't control every thought that pops into your head. You can't control every feeling that washes over you. But you can control your response. You can control your standards. You can control your rituals. So build systems that support your discipline. Don't leave things to chance. If you want to write every morning, set your space up the night before. If you want, eat clean. Prep your meals in advance. Remove friction. Make discipline easier to follow by removing decision fatigue. Every time you make discipline easier to access, you're investing in your future. Because it's not about having more willpower, it's about having better systems. But even with the best systems, there will still be days when everything feels off, and on those days, you must fall back on your identity. Remind yourself, this is who I am now. I'm not someone who quits when it's hard. I'm not someone who lets my emotions run the show. I move based on mission, not mood. And that mission will carry you through storms. It will give you clarity when motivation disappears. It will remind you that every difficult day is part of the process. That pain has a purpose. That resistance is a sign you're leveling up. Consistency in chaos is the ultimate flex. Anyone can show up when life is easy. But what about when everything's messy? What about when the plan falls apart? What about when your emotions are all over the place? Can you still show up for your goals then? That's the real test. And if you pass it, day after day, you become the kind of person who finishes, not just starts. Finishes. You start to trust yourself deeply. And others begin to trust you too, not because of your talent or charm, but because you're reliable, you're steady, you're built different. You realize that life doesn't have to be perfect for you to perform. You don't need ideal conditions. You just need the right mindset, one that says no matter how I feel, I will show up, I will execute, I will rise. And the more you do that, the more freedom you feel. Because now, you're not a slave to your emotions. You can acknowledge them without obeying them. You can feel tired, but still take action. You can feel fear, but still step forward. You can feel uncertain, but still lead. That's power, and that power is built one choice at a time. 1,000 small wins that stack into unstoppable momentum. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's real. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't seek applause. It doesn't need validation. It just keeps going. Day after day, step by step, until one day, you look up and realize you've become the person you used to dream about, not because you waited to feel ready, but because you made a decision and kept making it. You didn't rise by accident. You rose on purpose. The greatest transformations often happen in silence. While the world chases applause, recognition, and social approval, the real ones are out there quietly putting in the work. They don't talk much about what they're doing. They don't need to explain themselves. Because when you're truly locked in, when you're genuinely focused on evolving, you realize how little validation actually matters. Growth is not something you need to broadcast. It's something you live. And when you live it deeply, consistently, and intentionally, people notice. Even if you never say a word, your energy begins to change. Your presence starts to command a room without trying, and not because you're loud, but because you're real. This journey is not about getting others to clap for you. It's not about having your every move acknowledged or admired. The truth is, the more focused you become, the more misunderstood you will be. When you pull away from distractions, stop attending every event, distance yourself from drama, and pour your energy inward, people will question you. They'll wonder what happened. Some may even feel offended or threatened. But that's not your concern. You are not here to be understood. You are here to become undeniable. There comes a point in your growth where your mission becomes louder than your need for attention. You stop explaining why you're not available. You stop apologizing for prioritizing your time, your energy, and your peace. Because when you're truly focused on building something powerful, your health, your mindset, your business, your future, you don't have time to prove anything to anyone. You start to realize that validation is a distraction. Praise is temporary. Claps don't build legacy. Discipline does. And once you understand this, your focus sharpens. You begin to use your time with intention. Every hour matters. Every routine matters. Every decision matters. It's not about perfection. It's about purpose. About waking up every day and asking yourself, am I living for me or for the opinion of others? Because if your self-worth still depends on being seen, liked, or praised, you're not truly free. Real freedom comes when your confidence comes from within. That's when your entire life starts to shift. You begin to generate your own energy. You no longer wait for others to motivate you. You become your own source. You hype yourself up when no one's around. You celebrate your wins, even if no one else sees them. Because the most important person to impress is the version of you from yesterday. You stop competing with others and start competing with your old self. You don't need to look around anymore. You're locked in on your path, and as you walk that path, day after day, you evolve. At first, people don't notice. That's the thing about silent growth. It's invisible until it's undeniable. But then one day, something clicks. The way you carry yourself is different. The way you speak, the way you move, the way you think, it all shifts. You radiate discipline, you radiate peace, you radiate self-respect, and the world begins to feel that, even if you've said nothing. This isn't about being arrogant or isolating yourself from people. It's about being rooted. You're not above anyone. You're just deeply aligned with your mission. And when your mission is clear, distractions lose their power. Not everyone will understand this season of your life. They're not supposed to. You've made a choice to rise relentlessly. And rising requires silence. It requires sacrifice. It requires long nights, early mornings, and decisions that may not make sense to anyone but you. You become obsessed with progress, not to prove anything, but because you've finally tasted what it feels like to become your own source of growth. You've felt the power of keeping promises to yourself. You've seen what happens when you don't give up after the first, second, or even 10th obstacle. And now, you're addicted to becoming better, quietly, steadily, relentlessly. This journey will ask a lot of you. It will demand you to leave comfort behind. It will test your patience. Your old self will try to pull you back. Old habits, old patterns, old people, but you'll begin to recognize them for what they are. Distractions dressed as nostalgia. When you're in the middle of rising, it's tempting to stop and explain yourself, to tell people what you're working on, where you're going, why you've changed. But remember, flowers don't open faster just because you ask them to. Let your results do the talking. Let your growth be the proof. The most powerful people in the room aren't always the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who have mastered themselves. They've done the inner work. They've trained in silence. And because of that, they move with confidence that can't be faked. You start to walk different, not because you're pretending, but because you've earned it. You've earned the right to be proud, not because of what others say, but because of what you know you've overcome. The late nights, the self-doubt, the failures, the loneliness. You stayed in the game when others quit, and that makes you different. In a world obsessed with showing off, your silence becomes your superpower. You don't need to post every workout. You don't need to share every achievement. You don't need to perform. You just need to build. Because while they're watching, you're working. While they're clapping, you're climbing. While they're debating, you're deciding. Every step you take, every choice you make, it adds up. Not for a moment of applause, but for a lifetime of legacy. Eventually people will ask, how did you do it? And your answer will be simple. I focused on me until I won. You'll look back at the version of you that once needed approval, once feared judgment, once sought constant reassurance, and you'll smile, because that version of you was the beginning of someone who decided to break free from the noise and finally come home to themselves. The most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And when that relationship is strong, when you know who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going, you don't need to seek the spotlight. You become the light. That's what happens when you stop chasing the world and start creating your own. You rise quietly, consistently, and with unshakable purpose. And then one day, without fanfare, you realize you've won. Not because the world said so, but because you said so, because you honored your own journey, because you built yourself from the inside out, because you chose focus over noise, discipline over comfort, and growth over validation. And now you don't need to prove anything. You simply live, you lead, you inspire without even trying, because when you truly focus on yourself, you don't just win, you become the win.